For 50 years, the Multi-Service Center has been providing help, hope, and positive change throughout South King County. Prior to MSC's existence, there weren't many services for individuals in South King County. 5 Head Start parents from Federal Way and Kent got together as they saw the need to have something in South King County. And so they came up with a proposal and approached the Seattle-King County Economic Planning Board for funding. They were able to get that funding, and with the help from volunteers, including attorneys, social workers, and teachers, they were able to open the Multi-Service Center on August 15th, 1971. Initially, the Multi-Service Center had 18 different services in one location, a house on Pacific Highway known as the Stone House. You could come to the Multi-Service Center at that time and get help with a variety of things that are needed: food stamps, help with employment security, transportation. And then in 1980, the group decided to apply for Community Action Agency status for the Multi-Service Center. And what that meant was not only that MSC would have more options to apply for funding, it also ensured that going forward, all of the programs and services that the Multi-Service Center offered would be based on local community need. And as such, there are a couple of unique requirements that we are required to follow as a community action agency. The first is that we're required every 3 years to do a community needs assessment to find out what the needs are in our community, and this includes doing surveys and focus groups with hundreds of stakeholders throughout South King County. The other requirement is that we have a tripartite board. So 1/3 of our board is community members, 1/3 are elected officials or their representatives, and the remainder are individuals that represent our community and our customer base. One of the needs that the Multi-Service Center has always addressed is the need for food. Food insecurity is a big challenge for many customers living in South King County. Now, the Multi-Service Center's food bank only serves the Federal Way School District. However, we also work to ensure that surrounding community food banks have access to the supplies and food that they need. In 2002, we entered into a partnership with Auburn, Kent, Highline, and the White Center food banks, and we became the transportation coordinator so that we transport food to these food banks, and we make sure that they can access food from resources such as Food Lifeline and Northwest Harvest. Since 1979, MSC has been providing energy assistance to South King County residents through a federal contract that we received. In our first year, we served 223 households. This past year, we served over 8,500 households in need of energy assistance. In 2002, we were able to expand the services that we provide, and we were an integral part of helping with the Puget Sound Energy, or PSE Helps Fund, which added another layer of services and resources that we can offer to households in South King County. In the 1980s, the Multi-Service Center turned its attention to the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness. We began by providing motel vouchers and associated case management support to help people get back on their feet. In 1990, we started leasing units to provide individuals with housing, and we leased 15 units of military housing in Kent to start our emergency family shelter. In 1991, we began a program out of what is called Titusville in Kent, working with women who were in recovery and helping them to get back on their feet. And then we expanded our transitional program to include a similar program in Federal Way in 1996, which were our men's transitional houses. In 1994, we moved from leasing to purchasing and developing affordable housing with our first purchase of Maple Lane and Maple Lane Estates in Kent, Washington. We also looked at where there was great need for individuals who were the most vulnerable in our community, and those were our seniors. We developed 4 senior properties, with the first one being our Mitchell Place Apartments in Federal Way in 2002. In about 2012, MSC started looking at other needs for housing in our community. And in 2016, we opened our William J. Wood Veterans House for low-income homeless veterans and their families. We continue to look at ways that we can develop and rehabilitate and preserve affordable housing throughout South King County, and we currently own over 650 units of affordable housing in South King and Pierce counties. MSC has long known that education is a key piece in our ability to build a future without poverty. In the 1980s, we ramped up our education services to include GED preparation, adult basic education, and English language learning classes. We've intentionally kept these classes small to make sure that individuals receive the one-on-one support that they need to be successful. In 1989, the Multi-Service Center was awarded the contract to operate the state long-term care ombuds program. Long-term care ombuds advocate for residents in long-term care facilities. We educate them about their rights, and we also make sure that staff of facilities are aware of laws impacting their facilities and their residents. When we advocate for an individual in a long-term care facility, it can really be for a wide range of things. Sometimes it's for simple misunderstandings between staff and the resident. Sometimes it's issues of medical billing fraud. It can even be issues of life or death. And in the case of the recent pandemic, we provided communication tools to make sure that residents could stay in touch with their loved ones. The Multi-Service Center offered employment assistance such as job search, but we found that people needed more. They needed help with creating resumes, they needed help with skill building. So in 1996, the Multi-Service Center expanded its employment services offerings to include both of those items, as well as job readiness classes, and in some cases, paid internships for youth and adults. Sometimes youth require a different approach to services. In 2008, MSC started its youth development programs, which included youth-focused GED training, job readiness training, skill building, and also in some cases, paid internships. In 2017, MSC initiated its Positive Outcomes Program, or POP, primarily for youth who were involved in the juvenile justice system or were at risk for involvement in this system, using a Credible Messengers model. Credible Messengers have lived experience similar to what many of our youth are experiencing. We provided youth leadership development in the form of services such as peer mentoring support groups, and taking youth on field trips to talk to local legislators. In 1987, the Multi-Service Center moved into our current office in Federal Way. In 2004, we opened an office in Kent, and shortly after that, we opened an office in Burien. Throughout the years, MSC has adapted its programs and services based on what the greatest needs have been in our community as told to us by community members. Some things have changed, but some things have stayed the same. Community is integral to the work that we do. Volunteers are also critical to the success of our mission. From those volunteers that helped to found the organization to the over 600 volunteers that help us to implement services and programs every day. Poverty and systems that disproportionately affect people of color, immigrants, refugees, people who identify as LGBTQ or differently abled, and other communities remain as barriers for many who are seeking to find stability and a better hope for their future. What is changing is that we have a better understanding of how these systems and structures create barriers, and we are actively working to change this and to dismantle those systems. We hope over the next 50 years that everyone in our community is empowered and that our communities are thriving. Thank you for being a part of MSC's first 50 years. Together, we can build a future without poverty.